This meeting is being recorded.
All right. All right, so meeting called to order at 7:05. And we have an audience of citizens today. Anne, hello. Hi, did you have anything you wanted to share today? No? Okay. Well, thanks for coming. And Anne, what's your address?
And unmute.
Unmute.
You're muted, Ann.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
It's
Oh, hey.
103 Lake Road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
And wait, are you? Oh, yeah, you actually, they can see you through the owl,
This one here.
right here.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so, but great. So, welcome. Did you want to identify yourself, your name and your address?
Sure, Brian Bonaduce, 134 Route 87.
Great.
And Lynn Howard, 132A.
Great, thank you. Did any of you have any specific things that you wanted to cover tonight while you're here?
I'm just here because I have asked for a permit.
Okay,
Permit reviews.
so that'll be both permanent?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. Excellent. So we will cover that when we get to that portion of the meeting. Okay. And the minutes of last meeting, are there any adjustments, additions, deletions?
Just a point.
Yeah,
My computer crashed, so I had to have Jen do the minutes. So I'm not quite sure if everything is there, that everybody had a chance to read it.
okay.
I read it, we have the concepts.
Okay. Anything else that anybody need to talk about it on the minutes?
So motion to accept the meeting minutes? Motion, second. Any other further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. All right, any communications?
One update from last meeting on electoral fishing. In 2004 was our last electoral fishing survey.
When they got the fish and
Yes, that's when they shot the fish and we assessed how many we have in the lake. And I was finally through Greg Bugby, thank you, at the agriculture center down there. He put me in touch with the right people. We are in the queue for either spring or fall of next year for the next electrofishing, which will be essentially 20 years ago from when we did it last time. It was that long ago. So I anticipate when we do have a date, spring or fall, I'll just update on that.
So they shot the fish and they floated them out.
Yeah, they don't harm them, but then they do some sort of a count.
Right,
Yeah.
they shot the fish and it kind of anesthetized them, but not enough to kill them. So they float to the surface and they say 10 bluegills, 3 bass, and so many pickerel and so forth. And I think they may estimate the size. I don't think they pull some out of the water, but not all.
So it'll be interesting to see and compare and contrast when we work.
Right, because there has been a change because of the fishing of the eagles and our other migratory birds. It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see. So that's it.
All right, great. Excellent. Forgot to print things out, so I'll be doing this by the dam. Oh, I'm sorry.
The I would just like to say that the ad hoc committee that Mary is so graciously chaired and gathered information on with respect to horsepower and so forth, it has met via emails. And I think because for the purposes of proper disclosure for the public, we should include those emails as part of the correspondence.
I've copied Mike and Phyllis on all of that.
Right,
Yeah.
so it should be added to, as an attachment to the minutes.
Right, so you have it for record.
Yeah, I
If
do.
you need anything.
I got them.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, Dan, any updates?
I can report that we've contracted WSC. I forget they're one of the major bridge and dam engineering firms to write the spec for replacing the gate.
Yep.
And we contacted the company we've been dealing with on the gate, and they said they would use divers and they'd wait till it was drawn down, and they would create they would block the intake so there'd be no pressure to go through the gate while they did the repair. And they would use divers. So that's in process.
Okay.
One question on that, when we get the request for proposal, and it may become new business, Ann Doc actually spoke to this, and Henry, you probably know this too. Early on, I guess in the 70s and 80s, the dam gate and pipe was at the bottom. And then because of some accident, it came up. Would we ever consider, because of draw and sediment, in this request for proposal, if we didn't have to draw down the lake, putting it back to baseline or bottom sediment that's full of phosphorus?
Well, I would support that concept. I think that what we're talking about in terms of the dam at the moment is fixing the internal structure of it. But yes, and it wasn't the accident. The accident unfortunately happened after the change. But the historic gate that's still there drew from 28 feet. The new weir that we have in the cement chamber that we have down there draws from 12 feet. And we would be much better drawing from 28 feet. And Dr. Cortman at one time talked about creating a siphon pipe or something else that came off from that weir. And it would be good to be studied. I don't know whether we could get any piggyback on this or not, but it would be worth.
Maybe we should add it to it in the review of the request for proposal. Take it under consideration. Okay. Were you gonna say something?
No, he's got to be eating. Yeah. Jim, do you want to share any of that, or?
Sorry,
Yeah, Rolling Rock over there.
it's my dinner.
Okay. So would we want to consider that as like an add alternate to the bid, or is that?
I wouldn't want to stall or slow down the process of fixing the current dam.
Fair enough.
If we could, kind of tuck it in there, it would be a great idea, Mary, to put that on, to look at getting the drawdown taken from a different.
Well, kudos to Ann Dunn. She was the one who brought it to my attention.
I'll ask.
The one benefit that we do have is that our drawdown takes place after what we call this the lake turnover. So we lost the thermocline, so that the water column is pretty well mixed, so that any water that's going out at any level is got about the same amount of phosphate. But if to the extent that we could suck some mud downstream, sediment.
Well, Mark said he'd ask.
Thank you,
Yep.
Mark.
Okay, great, great. And water quality?
It's down to the turnover.
It's starting to, yeah, have
The
some,
section just readings, I would assume if we went out today and do it, would be much less because it's all mixed into the water column.
it wasn't
Mhm.
totally different, but there was a small difference, particularly in the deeper levels. I don't recall, and I did not print that monthly, because the plant map came too, and I really focused on that.
They did it a while ago. I'm just saying today, you know.
Oh,
If we were to do it today because of what's happened, particularly the water temperatures dropped dramatically
Yeah,
over
2 weeks.
the last couple of weeks, mostly due shorter daylight, but also due to the temperature of the rain that's coming.
and the water quality data I have is August. As you know, we're always 4
Right.
weeks behind the time. We're gonna fix that next year. We have 2 solutions. So.
I cannot row my rowing shell in the morning without pausing to wipe it off because it's collecting the surface scum, which is all of the algae that bloomed overnight.
Jeez.
So it's pretty cloudy.
Well,
Yeah.
you can still see down. I would say for Connecticut lakes, it's still good, but it's not what we had in
What we're
July.
used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know that has the water turned yet, or is it still?
It's
I think
turned.
it's starting.
So by the 15th, it should be completely turned. Do we think?
It should be fine.
I would.
Good. That's great.
I mean, there clearly is nutrients coming into the upper waters, creating these blooms that I run in the morning when there's no wind. Haven't been rowing for about 4 days.
I wonder why.
But when there's no wind, it's
I've gotten a few pictures of that pond stone rock algae from some folks, and I said, this is normal. It's gonna start. We're in the turnover.
right.
Mary, could I ask you to close that door, please? My Zumba time is after this. Okay, thank you very much. All right, fishing, any reports on fishing?
For the first time in a long time, I heard a little one caught a pickerel off of Joni Road.
All right,
That's great.
So that was nice to
And
hear.
I've seen our fledgling eagle catch some fish in the last week, so
They're
the
back.
bird is still around, right?
They're rebuilding.
Do you know that have they picked the same tree or?
Yep, same tree.
Really? That's
No,
great.
that's good. We have
uh,
cool pictures.
okay. Access, safety and regulations, any reports there?
You want to hold off on line control till we get through permits and all this.
You mean the horse, yeah, fair enough.
I mean.
Yep. Watershed management plan. I think, okay, stormwater culverts. Mark, any updates on the stormwater culverts?
We have not hired anyone yet. It's Mary, are we going to be talking to doing an analysis of the outflow from the culverts? Or are we mainly focusing on the culvert itself and the quality of what it allows into the lake through the culvert?
It's more the quality of and what's in it that's coming in from main stormwater drains. ESS has asked that for all the mapping on the culverts, but Town of Columbia doesn't have the connections. We know where the catch basins are, and that's about it.
Right.
So, but they will, I pointed out 5 stormwater drains like Sleepy Hollow, Route 87, Woodland.
And I have that whole list.
Cool.
So we could analyze the drains to make sure we're not allowing excess sediment or anything to get through, but I know to do an entire mapping of the outflow would probably require a grant.
No, and ESS is only doing, they're doing the town beach one too, the one next to the town beach.
Okay.
I think, and they're coming out, I hope they came this week in a rainy event to do this. And it's part of their nutrient and hydrologic modeling to say, where's all this phosphorus coming from? And then where can our strategies and possible actions,
Also, one request that came out of last night's Board of Selectmen meeting. I believe is it Denise Egan that lives next to the boat marine patrol?
Yep.
She requested that we put some sort of sand sediment barrier, like a silt fence around the beach, because she said when we draw down the lake, the wind, she just watches the sand blowing into her cove from the beach all winter long. So I thought that made perfect sense, and I was going to request that Public Works put up a silt fence around our entire beach. I just wanted to run that by LMAX, see what your thoughts were.
I think that's a reasonable idea, and you do see the sand blowing. It's why people that skate at rinks won't skate on the ice, because it dulls their skates. But the major source of the sand in that cove is from the wind blowing from the west and northwest and moving the water. But we should try to stop as much as we can. So cleaning up that fence is a good idea.
I think it would be well received. We have pictures from last year where Rich Niles, who lives next to them, Denise Egan, showed us so much sand has accumulated, he's losing his steps into the lake. So something needs to be done because there's erosion happening.
Yeah. I just want to get back to the culverts before we move on from that too far. There were the public, culverts, and then there are some private, subsurface.
Well, they're still public. They're where the public water is draining over private land.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That
Is that okay? So, but they're on private land, and I guess, I know for firsthand experience or secondhand experience that, there's a culvert between Minicucci and their neighbor to the south, Esposito.
Okay.
And Esposito has dumped a lot of debris and fill and things into that culvert, which then diverts water. It can't flow water anymore. And so then it funnels during storms, it funnels water into the basement of the Minicucci's house. So so there are some issues that I think during this review, we need to, I think make part of that review, and for situations I think the Minicucci's have, is that, it needs to be done sooner than later.
We had the same issue with Botticello's and Mike Wheeler's property.
Yep.
And Columbia Fire Department came in and flushed out the pipe so that it could flow again.
Yep.
And then Botticello's agreed to put in a swale between the two properties, so any spillover water was not going into the basement of Wheelers. So, we do have some history where at least maybe we can engage the town and the resources such as the fire department to do what that's supposed to do and clean that dang thing out. Ask the Espositos not to put debris and stuff in catch basins. That's just,
like when they clean their yard, all the debris goes into that area. So, Mark, what?
I would add a couple observations from the Creepy Hollow area, in that there are people that break their leaves on the lakeside and carry it up into the woods, and then with the permission of the landowners, I understand, but then the rain pulls it down the hillside into the gutter, and then it washes into the street, and that's not the way. I mean, it's great that they're not raking into the lake, but that's not the way we dispose of leaves. And because we had such a period of time that was dry, when we did get the rain, heavy, when we got the 4 inches, I collected 3 or 4 bottles and a couple of bicycle water bottles
Yeah,
that had come down the street, gotten into the drain and washed into the lake.
Yeah.
So we are not catching the kinds of things that we want to keep out of the lake.
right. So, Mark, can that be part of this project?
Yeah, I'd say what I need is some, and maybe we already have a volunteer group from LMAC, but all this local knowledge needs to be recorded so that
I thought it was already sent to you. There were,
I have the drains. I don't have the history of who's dumping and filling which ones, and I could look, maybe that was stated. Hold on, I have 13 drains listed.
Yeah, I have the data.
We probably don't need to mention any names.
Yeah.
What we need to do is have an educational process and an understanding that the town's gonna be policing this and the practice has to stop.
yeah,
Is it possible to have some members of LMAC sit down with Beth Lunt and I and put some background to some of these, why some of these are issues? So we have a,
Yeah, we already
That-
have a subcommittee, Mark. I don't know who's on it.
I don't either. Who is it?
You and Jim?
Oh, Jimmy's on it. That's right.
Yeah,
Jim?
Yes.
Who else?
Myself.
Mary,
Mary?
Mary. Who was the
Okay, I
third
got
person?
Mike
Good.
Mike. All right.
Santos.
Jim and I met with you. I'm not sure we've ever met with Beth.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
when
we
it
did.
started.
We met with Beth and Mark one day, remember?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when we came up with, we have no idea where these pipes are.
Yeah.
Culverts are. Like, oh, right.
Unfortunately, I remember that.
Okay, so to reenact this committee, it would be Jim, Mary, and Mike, Beth and myself.
Yep.
Yeah,
All right,
thank you.
got it.
All right. Dam emergency plan?
Were there some adjustments recently?
Yeah, right. We modified and updated the emergency plan to include all the current key people of the town. And what I have to make sure is that the PDF was modified. I know we had to redo it because we didn't have an editable PDF. So Jen was working on that. I'll find out if she finished it and I'll get it out to everybody. But we have it completed.
At one point, you mentioned maybe putting it out electronically on the.
Yes. And I need to find out where that is.
Based on what's happening on Florida and where we are with climate change, it's imperative that we're got a well-oiled plan.
Agreed.
Okay.
All right, permit review, Phyllis,
mhm,
could we, under the committee reports,
mhm.
could we put dam emergency plan under dam as the second item?
Sure,
And then put permit review as the first item?
under the dam.
No,
Oh, okay, move permit up to 1.
up to 1, dam status is second, and then dam emergency plan is third,
Okay.
please. I just realized that you guys are sitting here waiting and we could probably do yours first. Okay. Yeah, okay. So permit review, where are we at?
I'm assuming, Jim, you didn't make it
Yes.
to the site visit.
Jim?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mary, say that again. No, I wasn't able to get there that Friday.
Which permit are we talking about?
So this is the, if I say it right, Brian Bonahue.
Perfect.
There you go. Property and a revised application because in the last meeting, we denied that particular application. I've had the pleasure of meeting with Brian and Clark Robinson. We reviewed what is a pretty small shallow cove, and I think we all admitted that, with a series of properties around that cove. An example, they go the Walshes, the Perios, the Hallorans, now the Bonaides, and Henry, your sister, in that particular cove. So it's a small shallow cove, and I think now that Brian understands the guidelines, I think that it's reasonable with one perhaps change to consider this application in terms of favor for this particular property. They will be removing one dock. They have 3 docks now. As you know, our guidelines would permit for 2. So that dock would be going away. And that dock is closest to the Halloran's property. So it's a plus, obviously, for Glenn. What he is proposing is a dock, a boathouse in the almost center line or towards the center line of the property, which is appropriate, and a small catwalk. And I'll come back to that, that particular structure. Just so you know, the structure typically we have seen on this lake, structures are perpendicular, so you come in and you come out. Brian is suggesting, based on the code, based on how we can navigate, that this be more parallel to the lake wall. So the guideline of a 20-foot boathouse would be parallel to the lake wall. It wouldn't be coming out.
So kind of like how they do it in Florida, you know, they pull in sideways.
Yeah.
In the
More of an
canals
L.
area. Yeah.
Like an
Okay.
L.
Yeah, like an L or a 45.
Yeah, it's
Something like
kind of a, yeah.
It's parallel.
Yeah,
Do you-
so that's the primary structure, and I'll come back to that in a minute. I'll just mention that there's a secondary dock that they would be allowed because they have footage of over 100 feet. And that secondary dock would be at least 25 feet away from the abutting property, meets the guidelines. And the way they want that particular dock is within reason of 100 square feet. Again, it sounds like more of a 16-foot parallel to the lake wall and 6 foot out. And that may be an advantage, particularly with that code being so small. So my ilk is based on our discussion, but one hiccup that I think we have to discuss is that this is within guidelines and could or should be considered for approval, with one exception. And that's when you look at the big structure that will be now a dock that's parallel, a boathouse next to it, and a catwalk, the length going out into that shell cove is, by the guidelines, allowed 20 feet. The current length is 17 feet 1 inch. So there's a 3-foot difference of going out into that shell cove. There is potential, and if I look at it, to have more difficulty to navigate and to dock a boat at properties abutting, such as Glen Helen's, and I suspect that's why you may be here. So my ilk is, and I mentioned this to Brian and Clark, keep it at 17 feet if you want the boathouse there. Keep that length so that you're not imposing 3 feet out more into the lake, imposing on navigation of the abutting neighbor and potentially a swim area being smaller. The guidelines do have a section 7, that reads, in abutting property considerations, no dock, watercraft covering, watercraft lift, raft, or mooring shall pose a potential hazard for swimmers or other reasonable uses of the lake. Abutting lake property, front properties, including the navigation, docking, and mooring of the watercraft at the abutting lake front. So my recommendation would be we accept the proposal with the difference of the dock remaining at 17 feet 1 inch, not going to 20 feet. I don't know how that impacts you, Brian, or any thoughts you may have, and when we may want to hear from our audience citizens and or entertain questions.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, but I guess, do you want to respond to the 17-foot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to make adjustments. I totally appreciate that it's not a big code. There's not a lot of room. So And I mean, just to be clear, it was just word one put off. I think I was suggesting about 19, not 20, but regardless, to pull it back to, no problem, to pull it back to 17. I think that's reasonable for sure.
I have a question. I'm familiar, I'm looking at the Google Maps right now. Excuse me, I have one question for Brian. There's a dock that kind of comes straight out towards the center of the lake, and there's one at an angle. The one at the angle going into the cove, is that the one you're going to remove?
You're
Looking at-
currently saying current docks.
Looking at from the sky, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the one that comes straight out, and then towards the cove, towards 87. There's another dock on an angle. Is that still there?
This one's going away.
The one on
This one's
the
going away?
westernmost side would go away.
That's number 2, as I
That's
said.
going away.
That's going away. So the parallel, when we talk parallel,
Parallel
is
is
it
right.
this way?
Yeah.
It's that way. And the boathouse is currently here. He's saying instead of perpendicular, moving it over here
That's
parallel.
where the boat.
And the second dock.
Yeah, that goes away, this goes away.
Okay.
I don't know whose swimming area is that infringing upon?
Yeah, actually. we should
Well,
have-
what Lynn is saying is if you come out 3 feet here, it's
This is-
infringing on her ability to get her boat into the dock.
Okay.
And she feels it may also be this one.
And most.
Is
But
this-
she's gaining.
Did you see
swimming.
that,
But is
Mike?
this dock the 5x20?
No, yes,
Mike?
this dock is currently 17 feet currently. Now he wants to go 3 feet. And she's
Okay.
saying, if you look at it,
I see that.
it's not
Quick.
easy. It's really not easy.
This is
And Lynn,
being
you'll have to
proposed.
speak to that.
These are going away.
So
And this
Brian,
is
when you're
coming back
approaching
here.
your dock with the new boathouse installed, you're gonna be coming in straight and then taking a left into the house?
Well, no, but it's on the point, it's on the point, so the navigation is actually, ironically enough, it's straight on.
Okay, so it's more this way.
Right.
Yeah, so see, because of the point,
Tolerance dock.
And you have enough depth there when the lake gets low to maneuver in and out? Because the
Yeah,
lake does
I mean,
drop about a foot
It's
towards.
close, right, but realize, Lynn has a boat that's further toward the cove, Zach has a boat
How
there
about-
on the shallow.
Yeah, but
How about this, though? Would you consider, I understand you want to shrink it because of the 2 feet. Why don't you go an extra a foot wide and make it bigger square footage wise?
well,
Because the square foot, because you're losing a dock on the inside and you're gaining more
Yeah,
swim
but-
area there.
yeah, but it has to do with the fact that
How
they're
far out
new
off the shore?
structures.
Have to
There's
conform.
restrictions on new structures.
Right, but it's 100 square feet, right? New structures? It
Yeah,
doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter if it's 4 by
But the
20
issue-
or.
The issue here is how much it sticks out into a narrow cove.
Right, that's my point. So he's only gonna go out, what did you say, 17 feet?
Yeah.
And you should have another foot to go wider. You can go wider on the dock.
Oh, I
versus-
see what you're saying.
Oh.
You can increase the area on your dock if you needed the dock space.
Yeah.
Because believe me, when you're sitting out there in lawn chairs, you always want the extra little space.
Yeah, I understand, to be honest, I think this is for the boat primarily in and out, and I appreciate fully Lynn's concern, so I don't
Yeah.
want to make it any bigger than we propose it.
Okay, so,
But
Or any wider even?
or any wider?
No, I wouldn't.
You don't need it? Okay, you don't need the extra width.
Lynn,
No.
you're.
Yeah, well, no, I did have a conversation with Brian for this, and my concern is that it's difficult enough for me to back my boat out now, and the way we do it is we back out and basically go toward the open space between the current boathouse and the dock, where he wants to move the boathouse, and then go forward from there. The structure that is being proposed is now, instead of like being able to go in between those two docks, the boathouse and the dock even a little bit, what'll happen is that structure now is going to be, even if it's 17 feet wide, it's going to be 20 feet long. So it is going to make it more difficult for me to back my boat out. And as I said to Brian, I don't mean to be a mean neighbor or give him a hard time, but if it were me, if it were up to me, I'd rather have the boathouse stay where it is and the boat is farther out. That's my personal preference, but you know, I understand that, you know, he has rights and there are rules.
So, but okay.
Why don't you?
So your vote.
Well, you can
You're-
back
you're-
out street, you have to understand how shallow that
Is this
is, your
your,
walls.
is that your dock?
This is my dock here.
And
Do
does
I-
your boat go in
No,
here or
no,
right here?
it's way too shallow. My boat goes here. It's all very shallow, all along
Yeah.
here. By Walsh's, there's a big sandbar, so you can't go
So,
anywhere
so,
near
but
it.
right now, you
Okay.
could put this dock back here. And it would be a net 2 foot difference
Right.
here.
Right.
And so there, he's proposing something that really has zero impact than what you have, from what you have now.
Well, all I'm saying is the way we go out now is we kind of go out like this. Actually, it's hard to, but we go out this way because there's just this little tiny dock here and then go forward. This would cause us to go, I think this is a little deceptive, but it's like it would
Well, it's
cause
an
us.
actual photo. So.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd have to back out. I don't know. We
Well,
would see this-
my point is there's an obstacle here and what he's proposing doesn't necessarily, and maybe I'm missing something, he's not necessarily proposing to make it more of an obstacle in length.
Well, no, but right now it's a skinny little dock, so you can kind of go around it. This will
This is
be,
going on.
that now instead of being
This
7 feet wide.
perhaps is coming here.
Not like.
No, not in length.
That width, well, it depends on what you're looking
And like
at
I
length,
said,
whether you're
you
running
know-
the length.
But your
of the
game,
boat
is
or
this
the length
your
of-
property here? Is this your property?
Yeah, no, yes, this is my house.
This is your house, and so this is,
This
so,
is my, yeah.
so this is a dock here, so he's giving you this dock, he's taking that
Yeah,
dock
and-
away.
Right, and that
so
would be
you're
nice.
gaining- you're
That's
gaining-
not, but that's
you're
not swimming
gaining-
area.
But you're gaining huge access here.
Right.
Which, you know, might be kind of nice, but in all honesty, if it's so yucky, nobody will step down there anyway. So it's like, it's really unusable. I might be able to put Jimmy there to get by.
But I just see a lot of
The cove is
here.
about 60 foot wide.
Mike, can
That
we-
spot,
can
and
we
there are
pull it
two
up on the screen?
properties, That's swimming
Do
area.
we have a split screen up there we could display?
I don't know that I have.
Do you want me to? I mean, would that help?
Oh, yeah, you can share.
Yeah, I think you
wanna-
could share and it'll go up on the
I'm
side
sorry.
screen and we can just get everybody
Okay, you wanna
aligned.
keep it until it's
Yeah,
over?
yeah.
Keep it over this way.
I guess someone needs to let me in the meeting.
You got the right one?
Oh, yeah,
Mike?
hold on. I gotta allow you to share screen.
Steering, and he's got steering of jet skis. What is he?
Try that.
Mine just-
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
and
Gotcha.
Terry has got TJ.
This one is actually going here, which is 25 feet from the other. So that's.
There it is.
You're in there, Brian.
You're there.
So.
There you
There
go.
you go.
Thank you.
Could you just zoom in on that, just so it gets a little big? Thank you.
Nice, thanks.
Talk through it real, it is confusing, I know, so, this is just a satellite view, this is what exists today. This is an Overlay of things that exist today, these are all docks, there's actually 4 technically, because there's full docks on each side of the boathouse now.
And so, hold on, before we move. Then this is your dock here.
Yeah.
Am I looking at the edge of your dock here,
Yeah.
this white line here?
Yeah.
So when you pull in, you have to navigate away from this.
Well,
Right.
that's beyond where we park the boat. Okay,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
Wait, can you,
But if
can you show us where you park the boat?
Right,
Just
right
point to it?
Right
Yeah, it's
here.
right.
Right there, okay.
Yeah, it's because it's so
It's
shallow
shade.
all around there. It's very, very shallow. As a
If
matter of
you
fact, there
park
have
the
been
boat
years.
there,
where-
there's no way to get to where the one side of the dock there that has the number 1 on it, you can't get the access around the boat. The boat fills up that spot. But I agree, it doesn't last.
But I like that to be
But
on.
taking the
So-
dock
so
out.
That's what I'm
that's-
saying,
Maybe
I mean,
a plus.
is this this is a plus for you, right?
That's a win for it to go.
This is
away.
a win
Yes.
for you.
Yeah,
to go away.
to go away.
Yeah.
This is a benefit to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what exists today. Again, the dimensions here, you see this is 17 feet out, it's a 5 and the 15, it's 7.5 feet wide. And then, so if we go to what's proposed, this is what we have. So as you guys described, you know, it's parallel, as Mary described. So number one, this goes away, this dock. We just eliminate that, and we move or basically construct a boathouse. Right now, this is 5 feet for the small section, a 4-foot wide dock, and then a 10-foot boathouse, and plus the catwalk.
Plus the catwalk.
So that's the one. So we could, you know, shorten up whatever this 5-foot portion to make it not go any further, but it's absolutely going to be, you know, wider than the 7.5 feet today. We should go a little bit on each side, but it would sit where the current dock structure is.
So the net impact is you're about 2 feet over into this cove that you dock.
And 3
Yeah.
feet out,
About 2 feet.
and 3 feet in length.
And I mean, you've got. Yeah.
Like, you have to see that code.
I've been in
I
that
think
cove.
Henry could-
I've been in that cove. and
That is really,
I've lived there for 70 years, okay?
Yeah,
so,
So there is, this is the swimming area for the Howlands and the Therians.
Yeah.
Okay, fortunately, it's not the swimming area for Brian, that'll be out in here, but it is a swimming area. And this is a tight cove. And these rocks that you see here, because this is when the water's down,
that's my
doesn't
guess. I
bear
don't know. I
navigation.
don't know.
So Brian will have to go that way and Lynn comes this way. The navigational issue depends on the height of the lake and how much those rocks have been pushed up in the winter time by the ice. And so that's the scenario. And if there can be, I applaud Brian coming back with a revised proposal because I think it is in sync with where we want to be with our regs. And if, you know, shortening this distance from 20 feet to 17 feet
or even 8.
works for the Howlands and for Brian, I think it's a win.
I agree.
The concern for the lake, I will say, is the fact that it is shallow. And, you know, if there's a way in your designing it, Brian, we're not going to tell you how to design it, but if you can do away with the catwalk, but keep it still far enough offshore to be deeper in the water, that would be better than, you know, sacrificing and making it closer to the wall. But you'll have to figure out what works for your boat and whatever. But that's you know, all I would say. And there's a history in this cove of having people, present company accepted, tie their boat up and turn their engine on and put their prop on and drive the muck out. And when that happens, unfortunately, that invades my sister. So I'm going to refrain from a vote on this because of the fact that I have that interest, but I want to explain the facts.
Yeah.
I have a question, Brian. What if you moved it like 1 or 2 feet to the right, or is that too close to Henry's sister?
I did want to, I mean, I'm encroaching Henry's sister now. I mean, I'm practically on the property line.
Oh, you are? Okay.
What you can't, I didn't draw, well, if you go back up, like what exists today, and I appreciate what you're saying, Henry. Like today, I didn't draw the property line, but it's very close. I'm nowhere near the 25 feet, you know.
Oh, okay.
Extended. I basically go to the end of that white line.
Yeah, that's the corner of the property.
Oh,
And
okay.
so the new plan does shift it this way, and, you know, that does benefit my sister.
And I talked to Candace, and said it's nothing but goodness for you, Candace, and that's part of this is to consolidate and reduce the docks, and get them centered on the property. I don't know.
Could you?
know,
I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Henry, I don't know if you feel like this scenario would send, you know, all the way, and of course, we wouldn't do that, but do you think that this scenario would send sediment or whatever all the way over to your sisters? Like,
If you tied your boat up and turned your prop on to dig a hole.
He's talking about,
doing
that,
it.
yeah, there have been people who have, you know, tried to self-dredge and so he's not, and it confuses the issue because it's not really pertinent to what we're talking about here. And
normal operation.
yeah, and it's nothing that would have, and so I think we should take that off the table.
What is germane to the issue is,
Yes.
I measured the depth of the water where you're putting the boathouse. And the depth of the water is gonna be about 3 to 3.5 feet. On Rodoni Road, I can tell you, we have 5 docks, 4 are grandfathered, which are longer than the 20 feet. And our water depth goes from 2 feet 4 inches at one dock, where you're mooring a boat, and your stern drive never goes all the way down to the 5th dock is about 3 feet 10 inches. So you're within, if you're at baseline, because when the water goes down, we start having issues, and at times we moor out. One year in 20 years, we probably moored out.
That was one of the other things I was going to ask Brian, because you do have grandfathered, but it's not part of this application, a mooring. And are you going to keep the mooring? Because there is a mooring that is about here. You didn't have it this year. The anchor's still there. There's no chain coming up.
Is that's not the fire hydrant thing?
No, that's something my sister has to get out of this. There is.
But is that guidelines? The guidelines would say 2 docks and a boathouse.
It's grandfather.
Well, these changes though, it's not grandfather.
Well, but that's what I'm asking.
Okay, I see.
I want to make sure that he's making a conscious decision before he comes back and says, "Oh, wait a minute." You know?
In all transparency, I had no idea I had mooring out there, so I'm certainly giving that up.
Well, are you though?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, and you can come back and, you know, potentially reapply if you wanted to, because you do have a right to 2 docks and a mooring.
Yeah.
Not with the boathouse.
Not with the boathouse.
Not with a boathouse?
No.
Do we have an idea of the distance between both docks and the new dock and the
I did
existing
not
dock?
get in the water and measure that.
Well, but I mean, right now, if you looked at what was existing and what's proposed, it's about I would say a 2-foot difference, maybe 3 tops of impact from the distance between the
I guess,
existing dock and Halloran's to.
yeah, what my question would be is, what do you think the distance was from when you used to go into your dock? How far were you from the original dock that was there with your boat? Did you come within a foot of it, or maybe 5 feet of it?
What, the 17,
The 17 foot.
No, the distance between my dock and that dock that's not the problem. The problem is, it's not coming in. It's getting back out. It's like backing out. The way we used to back out is, you know, like I said, kind of in between that 17-foot dock.
You used to back out into his swimming area, is what you're saying.
A little bit.
So you used to put your stern drive, your propeller used to go into his swim area.
Well, it's
come
not.
out this way. This dock has not been used for boating, for mooring of boats for a while. Brian's boat currently docks here.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're talking about moving it to here.
Yeah, but, okay.
So it's not like we're just changing where he's going in this way to going in this way. There is no dock. boat that's been there
So
for a
then-
bunch of years.
Well, okay,
So
but it's
can-
still, he still has,
Can you go
as
to
a
the next-
property owner with an existing dock, he has every right to put a boat there.
Yes, exactly.
Can you go to the next
Exactly.
photo which shows the new dock? Brian? So with the new dock, what you're saying is you're gonna be backing out and you're gonna hit this dock, right?
Well,
Theoretically,
all
right?
I'm saying is, it's just because it's taking up more room in the cove, it's just one
Well-
more,
Where I was getting with my question is, in this particular configuration, if you were to back your boat out with the old dock in place, how close would you get to that dock?
not very close. Because you
Within,
don't
within,
really
within
go-
5 feet?
I don't drive
You follow what I'm saying?
I'm with you 1,000%.
Because if it's within 5 feet, he's only asking for a 2-foot encroachment of that.
No, no, I'm not, my concern isn't going from the 17 feet, mine is like, right now, it's 7 feet wide, now it's gonna be 20.
Okay,
Because
but
the length, you know what I mean, so you're going from 17 by 7, that dock. to
But
17
your
by 20.
backup is the same. Your backup of your boat from your dock is the same.
Right.
Regardless of how big that dock is.
yeah,
Where's the infringement?
geometrically, I don't see any
Right.
impedance.
What I'm trying to say is, without the new dock in place, she's backing out her boat today, and she's probably got 2 to 3 to 4 feet before she hits the dock. Right? The old dock.
At
New
least,
configuration, you're only going another 2 feet, so she's still got a 3-foot buffer.
at least, at the very, but she wouldn't even, with a stern drive, if you angle the stern drive, you have the ability to control direction
Right.
on the way out. So it's not like, you know, I mean, I can't even see, never mind that there's only 2 feet here. I'm having a very hard time understanding how this extra 7 feet results in a navigation hazard.
It doesn't, I don't think going this way is any
Yeah,
problem.
that's-
It's
that's
this
what I-
way.
Well, okay, but you're telling me 2 feet
3 feet.
out of 50?
Well, but this distance here is probably less than 25 feet.
Oh, I'll bet. I
Okay,
did not
but
measure.
he's giving up this. He's saying, I'm gonna open this
But-
space up for you.
But
to
we're,
even
we're,
more."
we're talking about also about public safety. This is a swimming area. Beth's kids, grandkids swim in this area. These people can swim in this area. When they swim in this area, because of the boating traffic in it, it turns brown, so you can't see the bottom, and you can't see a kid swimming underwater.
But this shouldn't change any of that. How does this change any of that? As a
Well,
question.
Well, Henry, you're allowed to go anywhere on the Lake Mims steerage as long as you got depth. And-
Correct,
and
but
Mims-
I've got,
There is a reason that we have a 25-foot distance to the boundary line. And
Well, yeah,
there
but-
is a distance, we have opposed other people who wanted to move and encroach on somebody else's swimming area. That we can't do that. So
I
we
have-
have a swimming area.
I have fishermen come 1.5 feet from my wall in my swimming area. And what do? I say, hi.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
If you see 'em.
if I see them, but I'm just saying, I don't know.
They're allowed to.
Yes.
And they're allowed to.
By the
That's what I'm
rules.
saying. I
They're
say,
allowed.
hello.
This summer, I didn't know they were there until their lure hit my rowing shell and I turned around.
Yeah.
To get back to the proposal.
Yeah. Is there a motion? Is
I
there?
think it's reasonable to say that Brian is willing to make some concession. And maybe say the concession is 18 versus 20 feet, then it's reasonable to help Lynn, who has some abutting neighbor issues. So the motion would be to accept the application as is with one change, that the length of the dock number, whatever it is, 4, is that 4? The
Well-
18 feet instead of 1.
Well, no, wait a minute. You're talking about, no, it's the depth.
I mean,
It's
the
the
width.
it's the depth of the assembly.
Yes, the
depth of-
dock, the boathouse and the catwalk.
Yes. And I second that motion
At 18.
at 18 feet. And I second that motion. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. I have questions.
Sure.
It is a boathouse.
Yes.
We haven't seen a picture of the boathouse. It's been described in the first application. But I want to be comfortable that it is going to abide by our height requirements or whatever. There's nothing in here that talks about that.
So per the standard, so.
Brian, are you aware of the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, I certainly rebuild the boathouse. So I thought I had referenced
There's something in
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I thought I had written that in here, but
No problem. I just want to be sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, we'll make sure that it's per the guidelines.
Per the guidelines.
Right.
Yep.
So when we write up the motion,
Okay.
it'll be to reduce the whole length of that to 18 and boathouse be within the standard guidelines of height, length.
The whole thing.
Yeah, I
And
did put that word
any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you, Brian, for working with us on that, and I hope it means success for everybody down the road. So we can thank you. All right. Next. Any other permits? Please no.
Hold on, she got a question.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, other permits and what?
He wants to
When did it come in?
Oh,
We
I'm
haven't received
sorry.
it yet.
Who does permits? We do have the permit. To me, it was an emergency repair.
Well, it's a standard, yeah. There is no issue as far as I can see. She wants to just reseal the dock and waterproof it and with wood preservative so that it lasts. And there may be a few boards, more boards that might need to be replaced.
I don't think we.
All the boards.
Oh, right, you want to do the track?
Now all the boards.
Yes.
The foundation's
But
fine.
did we receive that?
Foundation was just
I
redone,
haven't seen
but
it yet.
something is
I don't see it.
contested. It's not even that.
It got sent out by,
Yeah, Jennifer sent it out.
she may have only sent it. maybe.
Yeah, officially, we didn't receive that in our email. I mean, Mike
Okay.
forgot
On
it.
the top of her ballot.
It came to the committee members. It could be approved, it could be one of the kinds that approved without.
Oh, it could have had an administrative approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Motion of administrative approval, then Alan's application.
Yeah, as long as it's all conforming, yes, yeah.
The
Agreed.
only thing I'll observe, Glenn, is that I redid some things with Trek and it's very slippery when wet.
And hot.
So I.
Initially.
Hot, so I will warn you just so nobody
Yeah.
gets hurt.
Initially, it will wear in, and there are some newer ones that have texture.
Well, that's what
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the Trex brand, but it is a composite decking.
Even the ones with texture when wet slip.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
some of them don't get as hot as it, so.
Well, this top of this dock was redone.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 years ago, the pressure treated wood. And
Yeah.
I had to find out, okay, it's infested with something.
Yeah, pressure treated wood isn't what it used to be anymore.
yeah. Well, they took out all the good stuff, the bad stuff and the good stuff.
I mean, my son just went right, and there was no, when it was redone, when the bottom was redone this winter, Clark Robinson did it, and they didn't mention that there was anything wrong with the top board, so it's something that deteriorated really quickly. Like I said, one of my kids, right, we looked at the board. I don't really want to go to pressure.
So good.
But we're good.
All
All right.
that because it's
Yep.
just a repair, right?
Yeah.
It's just a repair. There's no dimension changes. Yep. All right, and budget review, Mark, how are we doing?
You're fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town ordinance on motorboats. Mary, take it away.
Okay, so I want to thank.
Can I start by having the minutes reflect how thankful we are for the work that Mary has done?
Absolutely. Mary, thank you. very much for all your work that you've put into this. Yes,
Well, I will distribute.
you're making us all look bad.
That was on purpose.
Don't put that in the minutes.
That was not the intent.
No, I know.
As you know, there are those who would like to change the town ordinance in regards to horsepower. And currently, our town ordinance is that we have a horsepower of an outboard motor not to exceed 80 and an inboard outboard not to exceed 150. So in framing this with the subcommittee, I sent them an email and got feedback from Henry and Mike and Steve regarding, instead of having a ton of discussion that I think is going to be a ping pong ball, I think we need to understand currently what can we allow on this lake, and currently with new emission regulations, for an example, what is not allowed on this lake anymore and what's essentially going away. So I framed it with 6 questions. Mike, I think we have a.
I do. Yep.
So this issue came up because I've received at least 3 inquiries about, I can't buy a boat to get on this lake anymore. Therefore, you need to change the rules. Well, okay, then what can't you buy? What can you buy? So the questions revolve around, can one purchase? What can one purchase? Can you purchase? And the 3 inquiries were a new stern drive, inboard, outboard, with 150 mile or less horsepower. And the response is essentially, with a gasoline engine, no. The emission standards have changed. 135 horsepower have been taken off the market by Merck, Cruiser, and Volvo. Therefore, you cannot get a 135. The price of getting a 135, because the manufacturers had put catalytic converters on them, was cost prohibitive.
Wait,
So-
I'm sorry, what was the last? Oh, yes. Yep. Yep.
So they've gone to, and you guys know machines better than I, from 2-line to 4-line to 200 horsepower or more. So to get a stern drive like some of us have on the lake now, you can't anymore unless you have 200 horsepower, 220 or 250. That's what Merck and Volvo, the main manufacturers in the lake. If you wanted to, you could get a diesel engine.
And you mentioned special order.
It's
No.
a special order.
No, well, they're not.
I know.
They're not I mean, everything's special order these days with supply chain issues, but it is a standard model.
Right.
Okay.
So you could get a stern drive less than 150 with Volvo at 140 horsepower. So no on gasoline, yes, if you chose to go to diesel. And there are pros and cons to diesel, so I understand.
And you
So-
can, yeah, I'm sorry, you haven't talked about outboards yet, so never mind, sorry.
Okay,
Yep.
so the next question is, can I purchase a used stern drive? Because Henry brought up the fact in our email exchange was that this could become a classic boat, but yes, and Steve Harrington also said you can get used stern drive and board outboards 150 or less.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry to, I think we should take, for what it's worth, I think we should take used off of the plate. If this is a discussion about what's available in the marketplace,
Okay.
Going with used, I mean, anybody can buy used anything. I
Right.
get it.
Used cars.
But, you know, if we're looking at a diminishing resource, if you will,
Sure.
you know,
But you can currently right now.
you can currently, but used comes with, well, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm contradicting myself. I'm going to do that right now publicly. Yes, I am. You can buy factory remanufactured with a warranty. My issue was to tell somebody, well, yeah, you can still get an engine, but you're going to have to buy one used is one thing, but it's another thing to say, well, you can buy, you know, remanufactured engines, and those are available. So
The hiccup with remanufactured is for gasoline engine, because of the new emission standards.
Yep.
The law only allows you to get a remanufactured 135 from Merck if your boat is 2008 or older.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
interesting.
I called Merck directly.
My boat's going up in value every minute.
So if you look at the next 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, can I get an outboard? Can I get a personal watercraft? Can I get a new jet boat with 150 or less? The answer is yes. You can get everything that is essentially on this lake, including an outboard drive, pontoon, whatever, 80 or less. And if you look at the summary, it goes up from 40, 50, 60, 75, 75, 80 for an outboard. So Mike, I don't know if that was your question.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, well, but we cannot purchase a new one.
Yes, you can.
I mean, the diesel.
Stern drive, we're on outboards now.
Yeah, okay.
If
Yes,
you
sorry.
want to purchase an outboard,
Yep.
we're still at 80, can you still get an outboard? You can
Yes.
get an outboard from 2.5 horsepower up to 425 horsepower.
600 now.
I really.
600. They actually, the motors don't move, only the outdrive moves.
Put a restrictor plate on that.
Yeah.
I think just want to make this comment that you can get an 80 horsepower, but most pontoon manufacturers at boat shows at a 20-foot pontoon, which is probably the average 2022, don't start with an 80 horsepower as a package.
But
They
then
start with a 90 horsepower or 115. That seems to be the market standard, is what I'm saying. But
you're
in
absolutely right.
this case, if the requirement stayed at 80, we'd have to probably special order or change the configuration of the boat, which would cost more money to get the 80 versus the standard 90.
I'm not disagreeing.
But that's not the question. She's answered.
Right.
The question was, can
you get it?
can one purchase a new outboard drive with 80 horsepower or less? And the answer is yes.
And Bob, we have that.
Yeah.
We have a 20-foot Chris Craft that came with a 240 horsepower. We wrote the president of Chris Craft and he allowed us to put a 135 in. Now,
Yeah, no, I know, because I remember when they bought the boat years ago, they were saying, what kind of motors in that thing? Yeah, they put in a 130.
The other thing that I think we need to observe is that the ordinance doesn't preserve a right to have every kind of boat that's manufactured. The ordinance is if you want to have a motorboat on Columbia Lake, these are the motorboats that will allow.
Yeah.
And so
It's just not an 80.
And the question is, should we change?
So you can't have
Yeah, I
an
know.
import outboard.
I'm just saying, you can get a 75.
There
You
was
can
a
get a pontoon
time,
boat
I
for
think, when
75.
this ordinance was passed, import
The one that
outboards
makes an
didn't
80
exist.
You may be right, you know.
I'm sorry, what was my
I'm
point?
saying this is all about, regulating the safety of Columbia Lake. There's nothing that says in this ordinance that there is a right to have an inboard outboard, or there's a right to have an outboard, or there's a right to have a jet ski. The concept is what is safe for Columbia Lake. And as long as we are having the capacity to have boats that are safe for Columbia Lake, we're still within the ordinance. And we haven't stopped people from water skiing because you can buy a boat within this things to do tubing and water skiing and anything that's currently going on Columbia Lake. You may have to change from an inboard outboard to a four-stroke outboard engine, which may have its own benefits.
Well, if you could even do that, and some boats you can't do that. But the issue isn't, the questions that are coming is, look, I went out to buy this and I can't. Are we willing to change our standard? And right now, we don't have to change our standard because we can put several things on this lake within our ordinance, except stern drives. You can get a jet boat, you can get a jet ski, and I'm not sure we want a jet ski with over 150 that are going 50 or 55 miles an hour. And it begs the question, the last question is environmentally, should we make any consideration? Is there an issue with higher horsepower?
Gas, energy.
The research and initially initially, I haven't done a thorough review, suggests there could be some issues environmentally. In particular, the product, not the new engines, which are designed to have less gas leaking and things like that. But the issue is the propeller and the RPM stirring up the bottom and creating. And the data that I found, at least, and I researched back to 1974 and up to 2013, and found some data that says, we should take that into consideration. I don't have a, I'm not one way or the other. I'm just saying, this is what could happen right now. So we're well within standards. We can allow a lot of things on this lake. Do we need to change the horsepower? And I think that's, that's going to be the 64 million.
Well-
The committee was supposed to come back with a recommendation on that, but there is a definite landing.
Well, I think it's posing the question, can people power boats within the marketplace today? And what's the answer?
Yes.
So is there a need for a change?
No, I would say no, right?
I-
Because they can access it right now.
So-
There are political and strategic issues with doing a change with the state of Connecticut.
That's
But we may not
I
need
think
to get
that's-
to that
I
level.
think that's secondary. Primary issue is, are we still able to enjoy the recreation of the lake and protect the environment?
And I would agree, yes, the engines are better. And the fact is, you can find a boat to enjoy any of the sports that are presently being enjoyed on Columbia Lake and continue to do that. It might be a different boat than the one you have now, but when you're ready to sell the boat you have now, you have to buy one that's going to fit. But it's not going to say you can't water ski anymore. It's not going to say you can't fish anymore, or tube, or whatever.
So what you're saying is you'd have to buy a used boat.
No.
No,
Well, you
You
can
can
get,
buy
you
it-
can't get the 130s.
You can't get a stern drive.
You can't get a stern drive. That's my point. So,
But you can buy an outboard. You can go buy an outboard engine with a 4-cycle outboard engine. It's no different in terms of its performance and.
yeah, oh yeah,
longevity
I
than
think,
an
I
inboard.
think there is a big difference in performance because most of your small outboards will come with a 60. Or because there's not too many boats.
well, but the 75 is available.
70,
80 is available.
Well, it actually, yeah, right, Suzuki is.
So far. I'm curious.
But
Jim,
yeah.
Steve weighed in leaning towards Henry. I had yet to weigh in, but Jim, I was wondering your thoughts.
So I had mentioned last meeting, this has come up numerous times over the years, and the problem that I see, because and to be honest with you, I was the one when I first came onto the committee, I came on pushing for a motor change back then, and because although they still made the 130 at that time, they changed the 150 to 130s and 165s, and I was trying to push it to increase it to 165s. And everybody talks about the size of boats, and when I first came onto this lake, the average size boat was between 14 and 17 feet. That was pretty much it. You know what I mean? And then they started going from the 17 footers to the 19 footers, and now you see a lot of 20 and 21 footers on the boat. So that's really what I see as the reason for the incremental size jump in motors, because the boats are getting bigger and bigger. And in order to water ski behind a 20-foot boat, you need more than 135 horsepower or 80 horsepower. But when they were putting those size motors on the 17, even the 19 footers, my Stingray is a 19 footer, and I have a 135 on it. And honestly, that's about max, the biggest size boat you're going to get and still pull up a water skier. It would pull me up, but it would drag me for quite a while. You know what I mean? What my 19 footer really needed was a 165 on it, or more, or 190 horsepower. That would have been ideal for that. But But again, back when I bought that boat, obviously I bought it because it had a little more size and it still met the horsepower restriction. So what I'm afraid of, and to be honest with you, what was told to me when I was trying to change this ordinance, and I did a bunch of research and I went through the whole scenario and all the, and I explained how all the boat manufacturers were increasing both the size of boat and the motors, and that we had to keep up with what's going on in the world. Well, I was shunned and pushed back down into my seat and told, basically very nicely, but that that the real reason for having a horsepower restriction was so they didn't need a speed limit restriction. Most of the lakes around us have speed limit restrictions, not horsepower. Okay, and the problem is that, what I learned to understand and agree with wholeheartedly is that by having that horsepower restriction, we control the speed, because the horsepower size, by not going over the 135 or the 150 and the 80, I don't care. You can get a bigger boat and underpower it, but you're not going to go faster. And that stops people from doing that. What we really don't want on this lake, at least this is what was told to me, is those big hulls on the bigger boats, because that displaces more water, creates more waves, creates more turbulence underwater, that type of thing. That's the reason we didn't change it 15 years ago, and try to keep up with the boat manufacturers. So although, I was wholeheartedly in the camp of increase the horsepower because I wanted to water ski. I didn't want to get dragged as far as I normally do. You know what I mean? I do understand it why we didn't do it, and I'm not sure we want to make that change unless we have to. I mean, if there's nothing available and people can't use it, this is a recreational lake, and I think it should be, we should allow people to use it for recreation. But if there's still, we're still able to buy boats that fit our horsepower restrictions, and people can still do what they want to do from a recreational standpoint, then I don't see a reason to change it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that Steve isn't here, but he bought a 17 or 18 foot boat this year and put a outboard engine on it, and it'll go as fast as any of the inboard outboards or other outboards on the lake. And Dave Vanderbilt certainly has an outboard engine on a acceptable boat that drives it at tournament speeds for skiing. So it is possible to continue to do all of the sports that we're doing.
Well,
I agree with what people are saying, that the manufacturers are wanting to push out bigger boats, but bigger boats are also going to lead eventually to us saying, well, we got to think about changing our 20-foot dock restriction, because if you're trying to moor a 24-foot boat at a 20-foot dock, it really doesn't work very well. So it's all in.
I guess for the family like yours, Jimmy, who has a 19-foot boat with a 130 Volvo Penta, right? If that boat fails and they wanted to go buy the exact same boat, he can't buy that new. That was my point earlier.
That's correct.
And you're absolutely right.
He can buy a Tahoe T16 with a 75 outboard, which isn't going to have the same comforts and conveniences of his 19-foot.
Right.
That's what I was trying to make earlier.
You make adjustments.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to make adjustments.
Or we change the rules.
Well,
Or you're right to the
I think
president,
to Henry's point is saying we're going to change the rules comes with risks.
Yeah.
It becomes with risks, and they are risks, at least that all those who have come before me, and many of us here, those risks are, once we go down that road, there's no turning back. And if we try to make a change and it results in other changes that we don't want, there's no recourse. So I mean, we need to keep that in mind.
Jimmy, you've been out.
Mike, yeah, one other.
Jimmy, you've been on LMAX since kindergarten?
It feels like it. Hey, one other thing that I'll mention is that, and Henry, your dad actually said this to me when I was trying to fight for the change. We have to really be concerned the fact that if we change it, once we change it, because of, the boat motors sizes being changed, we set a precedent. And the next time the boat motor, in 5 years, when they change their specs again, and somebody comes to us and said, well, you did it before, you need to do it again. You know what I mean? You have to be careful. We have to be careful about setting any precedent of following what the boat manufacturers do. And I mean, if it's right for the lake, then I'm all for it. But I don't want to do it just because the boat manufacturers are trying to sell more boats because they go faster and more powerful.
Yeah, the other thing to consider too is that the boats may be getting bigger, the engines may be getting bigger, but the lake's not getting any bigger. And, bigger boats on a small lake is that safety hazard too with faster boats on the lake. So I don't know, that's.
Well,
We're already dealing with it.
Bob, I'd be interested in knowing why you can't get an outboard that's got as good of a cruiserman as my.
No, I've had one. I've had the outboard. I just don't like them.
Well, but they're different now that they're not two-strokes.
No, I got a 4-stroke on my pontoon.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not an outboard person either, but at least I know I can still take my grandkids water skiing if I want to.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I
agree. I'm aligned with that.
Okay.
And there is a risk that if we did this, we'd be told by the state, well, why have any?
Yeah.
Or, gee, I think that boat launch seems a bit restrictive.
Yes, exactly.
Open that up to cottages.
Yeah, which is what I'm deathly afraid of.
We'll bring in the invasive plants to slow you down.
Yeah, right.
So,
so where?
So do you need a recommendation from the committee? Do you want a motion?
I think, well, unless anybody has anything else, it can be a motion.
Well, do you think we need one? I mean, do we have to say we're not going to make any change, or we can just silently just not approve any change? Do you think we need action for the people that we're inquiring?
Well, there are people out there trying to buy right now who want to know what we're going to do.
Okay, well, I think then it's probably good to make a statement that says that we've done the research and we feel there's no need for a change.
So motion to.
I would make a motion that we not recommend any change to the horsepower limits based on our research that shows that we can still obtain boats of one form or another that continue to allow all of the current recreational uses of the lake that we've enjoyed for years.
Okay, do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. All right, thank you, everyone, for your contributions on this. I know I will just say that for those of us who were around the last time this went to a town vote, I'm glad that we're not pursuing this because it was ugly.
Really?
Oh yeah, If you thought the gate issue was bad, this was brutal.
Well, there are all sorts of issues with getting into too many boats.
Yeah.
If we change this, but we don't need to talk about that.
Yeah.
I just have a question, with Mary, how are you going to respond to those people with current boats that are over the limit right now?
Boats now on the lake overload? I think that's a totally different issue.
Yeah,
I think the Marine with the town has to take action. A, to let people know we're going to do very rigid inspections this year, or starting this year, and B, police will take you off.
Okay.
I mean, I think we have to rewrite those regulations. Mark, I don't know if you're privy to announce that you have someone you'll be working with in terms of recreation director, and that person's already texted me.
Sure, Mike, if I can, we are hiring Deborah Bear Fisk. Tomorrow is her first day on the job as our new rec director. And she has quite a background in sports. She's presently the UConn women basketball color announcer since 2012 and played for Gino from 1988 to 1992 as the point guard for UConn women. And she's been the associate athletic director for University of St. Joe's with Calhoun. And she's also the director of athletics for Kingswood Oxford School, a private school. And
I graduated from there.
did you?
What's the name again, Mark?
Her name is Deborah Bear Fisk. So she married, I'm assuming she married Fisk, and she played basketball as Deborah Bear, Baer. But she's got a lot of energy. I think she can do a lot for recreation in Columbia. Both Ann Dunnick and Mary and our Nika, our existing rec interim director, we all interviewed her. We were very impressed, and we're excited that she wants to have a part in making recreation even a bigger deal for Columbia. So I
That's
think it'll
amazing.
be a good plus.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a win-win.
She's
Does she
very
have a
open to
boat?
working with us.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I would say, yeah.
Let's get her out in the rubber inflatable before the water
All right.
No, but she's very open to ensuring that the standards are appropriate for the Marine Patrol. And, you know, I think she'll have an administrative role, but Mark, at some point, I think we're looking to reconfigure the Marine Patrol to have more of a hands-on person.
Right. I think based on last year, how this all went, we have quite a few ideas that we'll be implementing through the budget process and through protocols so that we're better ready to handle next year. So I'm confident, especially with Deborah as part of our team, that this is going to be a good addition.
Great. Great. All right. Next up on the agenda here, ESS report.
Twofold. The monthly didn't say anything that was out of joint or just, you know, distinctive to discuss, but I'll include that I sent an email to the entire LMAT team of the plant. And Carl and I, the ESS liaison, spoke at length about not plant mapping, but about how do we make decisions based on a plant map and how do we best move forward. And his recommendation was you shouldn't make a decision based on one map. You should make a decision based on your whole annual report, what the water quality says, what the plant map says, what the nutrient modeling says. So after lengthy discussion, in Carl come in October, we agreed that it would be best to get the whole picture and then start to make some decisions on how to best move forward with plants, native. Thank God these are all native plants. And yes, there's a lot on our lake, but in the context of things, it's well within the norms of what they would assess or measure. Just as an example, 25% of plant volume on your lake coverage is high, we're at 18. Or is within normal, I'm sorry, it's high normal, we're within 18. So in December, we will get a full review from ESS on all their water quality assessment. Now they're used to the lake, the plant mapping and the nutrient model. So Phyllis, I've sent you an email asking that you would include Carla And
The December meeting? Or
for the
November?
December meeting.
December meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions, if they're looking at the plant mapping, you know, in their mind, this is normal. This is great news that it's all native. They rarely see that with who they're working with. And, you know, I know, and I explained to them the history of it, may not be perceived as normal by some of us, but that's something that we'll leave open for discussion in December.
What we have is a lake that's undergoing, aging or change. Oh, yes, well, that happens, that's the natural process, but there's more going on than that. It may be the fact that we've got more migratory birds with less DDT, who knows? But in any case, we all observe that there's been a change from a tickle lake to a bass lake over the last 20 years. And we have snails crawling around on the bottom and exponential numbers that weren't here before. There are many of us that remember almost as many crawfish as snails, and it's hard to find a crawfish these days, or frogs, and the plant life has changed. So I think we need to have a sense, even though it's great that it's all native, we need to have an understanding of what's going on.
Is there anything to compare that to, like, from 5 years ago?
Now,
10 years ago?
I actually asked Chip, and she said all we used to do is diving types of.
Yeah, the best we have is the fish data. Anything on the plant life is going to be just memory and recall.
So this is kind of our baseline. And, you know, I know the history that resides on this lake. I mean, I'm young, 30 years on the lake, and I think that those types of changes need to be discussed and said, you know, should we be proactive in taking actions with what do you do with plants? And so what do you do? Because I think then.
And maybe it's nothing, but
Yeah.
the concept is understanding, because there has been a change.
It's clear to Chick, because he has this pond root now in front of his house.
Right.
That he believes it's coming from
can have
cotton,
it.
because it's in all the. Well, you know, I don't know if we can prove that.
It may be nothing more than the fact that this lake, didn't exist before 1854, and it takes a couple hundred years for things to happen.
Yeah.
But it may be
Yeah.
something else,
Right.
and so that's what we need to try to understand.
Understand, right. Is this a natural evolution, or is there some degradation
Is it
happening?
an overabundance of phosphorus, and now that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe it probably has some of that phosphorus.
So where do we want to fit in the nutrient budget modeling?
That's coming in December.
December, okay, with that, okay.
So they've done everything except the rain event to get stormwater measurements.
Yeah, okay. So the last item here is I did finally get a proposal from Kevin Edgerly at Central Canine Goose Patrol. He sent me one document with some terms and another document with some pricing, and basically it's a time-based service. It's not, there's no kind of, defined scope other than
It's not $1 per bark.
That's how you determine.
and gladly not $1 per poop. So, but either way, I can send. I just got it yesterday. So
Is it feasible? I mean, how do you see?
Well, I mean, right now, I think we have what do we have, about a dozen or so geese on the
we'll
lake?
have more in the spring, but I mean, is it feasible from an administrative point of view? How would we roll it out? We'd have to get individual homeowners to sign on. Is that the concept?
Yeah. So
And would
Yeah,
the individual homeowner other costs that would be paying, or how are we?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe Mark and I can go through the proposal and, just give it a first pass and see how it would fit into the process here in town. But basically, they would include access through the town beach and residential properties that we are allowed access to. And they're basically, providing a weekly rate. It would be valid February 1st, 2023 through November 1st, 2023. So this would try to, get them at the beginning. They're saying they'd use the dogs as well as a laser and kayak. And then establish an information line or group to assist efforts to determine the habits of the flock. The use of a drone may be needed to locate the areas where the geese gather to assist our teams. The teams consist of a handler and a dog and will need access to all properties near the lake, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, well, there isn't a defined cost. I mean, there's a weekly cost and there's a budget. I mean, right now he's talking about a budget to be probably around 50,000 for the.
That's why I was just trying to get a
Did you say 50,000?
Yeah, 50. But it depends on what.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah. Well, again,
Well, do you have to also, what if we say we only got 40% of the landowners to participate? Is that effective, or do you need 100%?
Well, it's really based on 100% because all they're going to do is go to the property where they're not going to be.
That's my issue.
Yeah.
Once you have little ones, they're never leaving this land.
Yeah. So, if we can, and I need to talk through this with him, but if we can be effective in the early, late winter, early spring, then, that budget may be a fraction. So it all depends on, how much access can they have? How effective can they be in the early part of the season? And then how much assistance can we give them as a community to make sure that they're as effective as possible? They can respond.
If we're doing that early thing, then we've also got to include, Ugly Hill. And,
Well, that's what I'm thinking, off the lake.
Because that's where they're seemingly being born, and then they come down, and it's easier to eat down here because people fertilize their lawn and we're not fertilizing the swamp.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're attracted to lawn. The more lawn we have, the more we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, I guess
Yeah.
we need to, I need to get some more information
Right.
and then we can come back and we just need to find out what we want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen.
And it's all in terms of trying to understand how it's going to affect the goose lovers of the world. This is all about agitating the geese as opposed to killing them or anything else like that. It's because the dog is barking or patrolling or whatever, they want to go somewhere else. And the kayaks are chasing them away or whatever. So they have to find another location.
But if they can't fly when they're young, and that's the issue.
No, well, if they're already born, I
They're
agree.
already here.
Yeah.
And the
It would
ugly,
be no different than, chasing them with a motorboat.
no, and because the ugly issue is we can't access it. There's that.
Mike?
Yep.
Mark, I was approached by two waterfowl hunters who are very, very professional and said that if we had farms that would give them private access, they would organize goose hunts for organic goose meat.
Sure.
So if LMAC wants to pursue that on private land or help direct organized hunting teams where to go in Columbia, because that's not happening in Columbia, which is really a root of your issue.
You have to have permission of every property within 500 feet of where.
I don't think it matters how close. I think it just matters where they're going to feed, and they're feeding on grass and farmland when they leave the lake.
You can certainly have hunts in farmlands, and the farmers can just give permission to any hunter to go on there and do that. But the ones that were hunting on farmland at this time of year, I would say most of them are not the ones that were born on Columbia Lake.
Right, it's the migratory and
Right.
the.
The ones where we,
I know.
and we can't have a hunting season in July, that's when we want to have a hunting season.
Correct. It would all have to be within hunting regulations. But my point is, if you want to make a program where hunters could access certain private properties outside of the town, that would all be handled privately.
Yep. Well, yes, if
something we should consider.
yeah, I would like to talk with them
Great.
to get more information.
Cool.
So, okay, great. And I'll forward you what I got from K9, and we can talk through that as a next step.
Great, Mike. Okay.
All right. Anything else that we have here? I think that's it. Unless we have any new business.
I have one quick update on the permit link for the town.
Yes.
Trying to get LMAC tracker.
Yep.
On the permit link, and I did talk with Jen Lavoie, and she subsequently talked to Terry Lasoda and Jason Noad about potentially LMAC getting on their systems, their permitting systems, and they both felt that our process is kind of unique and it wouldn't necessarily fit that type of tracker that they have today. So, yeah. So, along with that, there's no licenses available either. They're all used up. But they did send me 4 other options that are kind of off the shelf. I don't think they're free, but we could potentially look at those. And it could be an interior exchange between the groups here, but it would be another system that you'd have to manage. So I'm not sure if you really want to do that. So,
Mark, any comment on that?
Do you get a chance to experiment with any for, free trial or something?
I did look at the permit link that the town has now for building permits, and it's a pretty nice system where you go in, you fill out your information, and it automatically goes to the next department. And that's kind of like what we were looking at, is that LMAC gets the application from any resident, and then we input the information,
Right.
talk about it here, go back, update it during the meeting, and then it goes to the Board of Selectmen for approval, or, wetlands if we need to.
You don't think it'll work for us, or
Well, they didn't think it would work for us based on the nuances of the LMAC process. So I've got both. I'm going to talk to both of them again. I think if I talk to Jason, maybe you can explain a little bit more. Show him an example of what we're using. The tracker that I made for the group. Sit down with them. This is what we want to do. 5-minute conversation, and maybe we can make some progress. So keep it as open. It's just that's an update.
Thank you.
Maybe they're, because
I agree.
a few licenses, people who rent the software would be willing to give
Yeah.
a trial, additional license.
Yeah, I think
to
it's minor.
experiment.
I think it's minor, compared to some of the complexities on the building side. I think LMAC is minor. So.
Yeah. And Phyllis, could you just put that online permit process review in old business, please, and just keep it there?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. All right. With that said, motion for dinner. Motion for dinner. Do we have a second for a motion? No second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you both for coming in.
Good night, all.
Night.